In 1492, Columbus landed in America. He wasn't the first to land there, however, it would be his discovery that would change history forever, as it made the New World known to all in the Old World. The Spanish conquistador Hernan Cortes, with nothing more than a small army of 600 men, 15 horses, and 15 cannons, he managed to reduce a great Mesoamerican empire to dust. The same thing happened to the Inca, another great empire beaten to a pulp by the Spaniards. Soon, other nations would begin to colonize the New World, and you can probably assume what was to happen next. But why was it that in 1492, when Columbus landed, that the Europeans, they had experimental guns and steel weapons, while the natives had nothing more than Stone Age weaponry to defend themselves? Why was there no American ship traveling to Europe in 1496? Why did they not have guns or steel weaponry themselves? Here's a rough political layout of Europe around the time when the Americas were discovered. And here's one of the Americas at the same time. See the difference? Europe is 10 times more developed than America, and all of its land is colonized and broken up into states. North America, however, has civilizations and cultures dotted all around the entire map. Why couldn't the Americas look like the beautiful spasm of color that Europe does? Well, let's take a look at this map. America looks fine until you realize stone tools can't build large cities in the dense jungle. So there goes most of South America. Oh, and desert. You really can't get agriculture started in them. Probably why the natives who lived there migrated. And let's remove the frozen hostile wasteland that Canada was, because you don't build empires off of clubbing seals. Oh, and all the islands that are right here as well. They're filled with all that deadly jungle. Otherwise, all of the Americas is up for grabs, except for, oh, wait, this looks a lot like this map now. Many of these places have since been populated. However, many Canadians live in the far south below the lines that I've created, and majority of the Amazon is still not inhabited by humans. But people colonized it all eventually, right? Yes, the Spaniards and Portuguese did manage to colonize much of Brazil and the Andes that natives never had. But the Spaniards and Portuguese had steel and ships, not stone weapons. Spain had the resources to sustain inland colonies, such as improved road systems and naval supplies. A Apache in a canoe can't supply a town of 100, let alone an empire. So we've gone over the fact that Pre-Colombians couldn't sustain inland communities, so they all lived on the coast. They formed cities, roads, and large wonders. However, this is only in the south. We'll be focusing on them for most of this, as North America was for the most part unable to form civilizations due to circumstances that, well, we'll get into later. Metal. It's what won the battles for the Spanish, so how did they get it? From the Middle East, of course. Majority of Europe was in the same predicament that North America was in. It was hard to form large empires. However, in the Middle East and the Mediterranean, trade flowed everywhere. Ideas passed and metallurgy spread and developed across. It traveled north, and eventually the Romans would ensure organized civilization was spread all around the continent. The Bronze Age, which would pave the path for the Romans, started as early as 3300 BC. This was 4,300 years before the North Americans. The Mesoamericans had discovered the smelting of gold, copper, and silver, and had used it in art and as a symbol of wealth. However, copper is weak until mixed with tin to form bronze. This didn't happen until 1000 AD for the Americans, although they had used a weaker form of arsenic bronze for art before then. The Iron Age started in 1200 BC. It started in the east, spread across the Mediterranean, and you get the point. This is still, however, 2,200 years before the North Americans made bronze. I'm not going to get into steel, which is even stronger than iron, which the Americans never formed. So now we can ask, why did they never form bronze earlier? Well, there is a reason for that, and it's food. Back in the day, food meant cities could be sustained no matter where the city is, so long as there is food, all is well. Much of European food came from the east, however, it still counts because, like all previous arguments, Mediterranean. So, here are all the produce and meat that Europeans would have access to. Now, here are all the foods that South Americans had, and North America. As well, deer and buffalo can't be contained and farmed like bees or alpacas. You also can't build a civilization on the one crop, so Native Americans moved with the food, as staying in one place really would mean starvation for them. But in South America, there were several crops and animals, right? Yes, there was. They have crops such as the potato and corn that can easily sustain civilizations, and so they did. The South Americans built and had created many great things. Chichen Itza, Machu Picchu. They developed crop rotation and chinampas, which were small rectangles of land in lake beds and swamps that were used for farming. The Inca used llamas and alpacas for their wool, as well as for their meat. The Inca built great road systems across the Andes, impressive given the technology and general rocky terrain. They created artificial ledges on which to grow farms as well. But why didn't they make steel? They only ever did manage to make bronze, which was mainly used for art rather than weapons. It is probably due to trade. We saw how quickly new technology spread into Europe. However, things would be different in South America. There was no large sea to transport things across, and the Central Americans tended to build away from the coast and around the lakes of central Mexico. Sea trade could have been done, but it wasn't. And as for land trade, while the 40,000 kilometers of road which was used for 400 years provided good trade within the Andes, it would not be enough to sustain large-scale trade. The roads and bridges would not be able to hold carriages or carts that they would need to. They used alpacas for trade, and that's all they had. The first horse to reach South America came in 1492 with the Spaniards, as horses never lived in any of the Americas until that point. I'm not doubting the endurance of an alpaca, but I'd rather use a horse in a horse race than an alpaca in one. Europe was formed and defined on trade, as was Asia. Cough, cough, Silk Road, cough. And sadly, South America never got its chance to trade. Innovation that did occur never spread far enough to allow any technological advancement. So, due to reasons not of their fault, when the Spaniards landed in 1492, the Pre-Colombians were doomed to be destroyed.